Okay, this is the Micro Museum of Luis Fernando Pacheco, Medrano in Bolivia. I have to thank this slideshow here from my Ukrainian friend Vlad9VT. He makes a lot of these, and you can tell that he is deep into this. Here's some of this black ceramic pottery, it's referred to as, but it's some type of bisque, and there's a lot of weird symbolism in some of this that you don't see in most others. Now, here's the archaeologist that went and visited him and got these pictures and this knowledge, something most academia knows nothing about. But in Tiawanaku, they had a lot of these things that have been found that are made out of this black pottery, and they're all hollow, just like you have to make ceramics, and then bisque fired. And in many situations, they've been stained and soaked. Look at this bottom one on the left, looks Egyptian. The headdress, everything. Well, they have to be stained and soaked and internalized with this black, but then also they will scratch the bodies and it will turn a white line, almost a reverse of chalk drawing. Look at this, where they have these little chests. When you open it up, there's Day of the Dead looking things like he was showing you there. In a minute, they'll show you some more. Look at this here, where the thing is totally hollow. It's got a weird elongated head on it, but then you see there's a lizard on his back. Oh, and it seems like holes where his arms would be, and this whole thing is hollow and then been fired out. All of these are fired out and hollow, and these masks, most of which are unusable. They wouldn't even fit to a modern person's head, but they have that mask look. There's a lot of them like that. A lot of African art are just way too oversized, and it's really a mask not to be worn, but to be presented. So look at this. If you look close between his hands, that piece he's got there and the other one right to the right of it there has a cross on it. And there's these little juglet things, and when you open them up, there's a little 3D pottery effigy of a skeleton and bones, quite often, rib bones, leg bones, things like that. It just baffles the mind. It doesn't quite make sense, but they definitely had this Day of the Dead, and it still carries on, where it's not looked at as being what most people think of. You look at weird art like this. The one on the right, it's got that strange bishop's hat. I forget the exact name for this style of hat, but strange bishop's hat, and it's got a snake, like a vine snake, coiling all the way around and going to his mouth. Or is this like one of those beer hats where you can actually drink out of this thing? I mean, strange little symbolism, but you see it echoed in a lot of things, and you see these effigies here of masks with holes in them where the eyes would be, and this would be tears. And someone had the idea that when they water plants, that they would carry these things around and pour water through them, and it would strain and pour around onto them. One of these shows to be something that looks like a bishop's hat, looks like the Pope. I mean, it's definitely got this Dagon style of hat here going on, the symbolism that goes with it, and the scepter and things, and it's easily relatable. So too is this, which looks extremely like a Templars cross, and could probably be nothing but a Templars cross. There's a lot of people call fakes on a lot of these and say that they're just falsities, but there's just too much of this stuff that's found. I mean, look at this skull inside of a jug that you close up. It's meant to be hidden. And is this some type of ancestor worship, something that you would do, for ancestors, If children die, would it be something smaller like this? You'll see a picture here in a minute. It'll show what looks like more of an adult with a little baby. And the baby's right about the midsection of the person, almost making you think that a mother died in childbirth and this was their one. I don't know. There's holes always in their heads. Some of this Day of the Dead symbology that you see here. But coming up, there's going to be a few things you can't explain. And I tell you, the Phoenicians and things had contact with these people because there's too much symbology, like the symbols that were right there on that man's stomach. Go back 5 seconds and look, and those symbols are definitely the symbols of Phoenicians. This mask here has this crying symbol, and it's crying the snakes. Of course, if you know about the temple, it has the snake that shows up on springtime. This shows you the water god effigy, the idea of rebirth, and so on. Look, this one here is crying inset gold, which is extremely rare for these things to have any insets. You'd think that it would go from there and start to become a whole lot more neat inset and inlays, but here's the one I'm talking about with a mom perhaps and her baby. You know, you look at other ones like this, it almost looks primate-ish, monkey-ish or whatever, but you know, these people aren't the best in the world at doing this type of art, and a lot of it's real symbolic and just shapy, cartoonish. But all of these strange effigies they have here, you know, here's a man apparently with a tail. Of course, they could have just put that on to it helps him to stand up. And these jugs that look very devilish, and then there's the wolf and the jackal that are contained in it. There's birds in a drinking urn that's double and yet only pours out through their mouths in between each one, like the two birds are kissing. Quite intricate. Here's that art style I was telling you where they scratch back into it and make these pictures. A lot of people say that the jug was original, but the scratching is later, and all these things on certain things, people trying to fake things. There's been all kinds of bullshit called on this, but none of these bones all laid out in here and stuff. You know, look at this eagle symbology here of these pitchers. They have little holes all around the rim, so this would have been like a hanging thing, like a hanging basket, and a pitcher that you could put water into and then pour from there, and you pour out through his mouth. I mean, is that it? And here again are this crying symbolisms. And you get a lot of different looks from these people, anything from an oriental to a wide-eyed with a very Caucasianish nose. There are ones with fat features, and a lot of people say they claim to look a lot negroidish. There are slender-faced people, but most of these in this set are more of a fat-faced people. And then you see ones like this, and it's definitely a slender-faced people. And it looks like they're not quite the same group of people. Look at this again with the snake and the people. Look like they're just hanging off the side of a jug. Almost like they're sitting on the toilet or something strange. Symbology of a wolf, perhaps. And a bird in the picture. But inside the picture, somehow they put a little... I don't know if that's a bunny or... You know, it's just some anthropomorphic small creature. Look, peekaboo. And you think some of these things look strange, but then you see something like this, and that's really just not allowed. You know, if we look, that is an elephant, and that's not a mammoth. That's not a mastodon, even though mastodons have been found all the way down from here. The only equation I can get out of it is that maybe they found a skull and figured it out. Look, here's Batman. And this really is a bat symbology with a man. And that kind of looks like Batman. And the other mask with its writing across the face of it. And when they made this one, they clearly pushed the nose in. They just made a line right in his nose, just pushed it in. But then look at this Grecian style cap, and then this one Phoenician looking. And there's a flutist, and you still to this day in the Andes see these flutist looking things. You see a lady and a man here with the same type of caps with the little holes in them. Strange looking. And then, of course, she's a woman, he's a man. But just strange effigies they have over and over again. Little pieces they found of this, which reminds me of one I've seen of Medusa that looks just like this, but it had curly hair all around it. This one shattered up, just missing pieces of it, but quite intricate. Wonder how hard he tried to find that piece right there. Here are more of those crying dishes, right? Snake symbology inside of bowls. Hats that have that conical look, that bishop's hat, right? That elephant, though, that's kind of weird, huh? It's strange how they'd have an elephant there. I mean, sure, they might have found an archaeological dig somehow, or something got exposed of a mastodon from before the last ice age, or is this still a recollection of that? Because they don't have that. They don't have recollection of a god like that. Look at this writing here in it, and show that it almost has a symbology that looks a little bit like Easter Islandish. And again, the gold inlay here. There's another elephant. Now, oddly, it shows a little bump in the middle of his back, and those should be up here on his shoulders. His shoulder has a big haunch onto it. The trunk doesn't quite extend where it should, but this looks extremely like an elephant. It's, you know, it's there, but it shows kind of split toes on it. I want something else that's weird. Some of the stuff looks all Halloweenish. And then look at this devil figure here. Well, we didn't have a devil in the Bible, really, that had this look to it. That was fabricated later. It's got a bird's head over bull's horns. Look at this devil with this little tongue sticking out that's forked. I mean, that's more devilish looking than pretty much any Christian art you can ever find. And yet here we find it over here with these people. And again, the bishop's hat on the guy that looks like an Easter Island statue. I mean, he's got the stomach clad, which also looks a lot like the ends of the columns in Göbekli Tepe. Look at this. It looks very Indianish, right? Has that Indian scalp top. But we definitely know that the Phoenicians and the Philistines both had these hats that look like this, and they wore them symbolically with not one or two big feathers onto them, but a group of smaller feathers. When you look at it in context, though, it's an anthropomorphic creature that looks like a lion with a mane. I mean, is that a sphinxoid type thing? And look at the bishop's hat on this guy. These strange hats, these fish, and again, you can see that scratch art here that's done on there just to show you fish's tails. But here's that mother with her child look, the ones that he has on display there. It's incredible black pottery from Tiawanaku. And I've always wondered, you know, Taiwan. It looks like Taiwan, Aku. Does this have a connection? Is there an ancient route these people used to go that was constant, that quit a long time ago and that no one's evident of? It's another figure of a elephant there. But it's found in Lower Mexico. Strange anomalies, people. Just weird things I point out sometimes, but they lead you to an idea that Columbus wasn't the first person over here in any way, shape, or form. The whole idea about people thinking they would fall off the earth has, of course, been shown false. And the reality of the situation is a little bit more interesting and intriguing than we originally thought. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.